People often say to me, "You're always doing something for someone or with someone. When are you going to sit down?" So I thought about it. Where do I get my drive? There really wasn't much to do growing up in Williamsport. We basically hung out at the center, Bethune-Douglas, named after Mary McLeod Bethune and Frederick Douglass. As I grew up, I began to recognize my family's input into programs at the center. Along with working and raising a family, they were very committed to the community. My maternal grandfather, Sam Bell, was from the island of St. Kitts. His poor English made it difficult for employment. He worked as a dry cleaner, but it didn't stop him from coaching basketball at BD. My paternal grandfather, Bruce Anderson, worked as a janitor for the U.S. Post Office and sold Raleigh hair and cleaning products. In his spare time, after raising 5 kids alone, he coached baseball for BD. My maternal grandmother, Charlotte Bell, was also very active with BD. She was the advisor for the High Tri, leader of the Brownies and Girl Scouts, and even den mother to the Boy Scouts. Employment was hard to come by. She worked hard as a domestic. When I was in high school, she told me to go to college and to never clean anyone's toilets because she had cleaned enough for me. I currently work part-time at a group home for special needs residents. I do everything required of me, but I told them when I was hired I wouldn't clean toilets, and I haven't the entire 10 years I've been there. My paternal grandmother is a step-gram. I didn't know my biological gram. She passed away when my dad was young. Elise Anderson worked with an organization called the West Branch Plan for Equal Opportunity. They met at BD with P.D. Mitchell, college professors, lawyers, and clergy. The organization worked for the betterment of housing, education, and employment for minorities back in the 50s. They worked with Realtors Bureau and even pushed forth the PA Fair Housing Bill. Yet in 1973, when my family moved beyond what was considered the colored section of town, the people in the neighborhood put out a petition to keep us out, except for 3 people on the block. My parents didn't go anywhere. We were in that house until they passed in 2003 and 2004. Mr. Mitchell was in charge of the employment committee for the West Branch Plan, was responsible for finding jobs. Places didn't hire blacks. If they did, they were given jobs they knew would fail or jobs in the basement, out of sight. Stores didn't want them seen on the floor, but they did allow them to be elevator operators. My mother, Daphne Bell Anderson, became one of those elevator operators at a store called Carroll House. I went to elementary school a block away. I thought it was cool to run down at lunchtime and ride up and down the elevator with my mom. I didn't realize the denigration and discrimination involved with her position, and she never showed it. At some point in the late 50s or 60s, Lycoming Hotel dismissed all colored employees. My gram said churches, the West Branch Plan, and BD all wrote letters to the hotel asking why. They even staged a mini boycott, telling organizations to cancel any banquets at the hotel. It must have worked. Blacks were hired again, and one of those hired was my father, Ronald Anderson. He became a waiter while also working at the post office with his father. These were just a few stories to show drive and perseverance of my family. Elise Anderson, who worked so hard with the West Branch Plan for Equal Opportunity and BD, went on to be a nurse at Williamsport Hospital. Charlotte Bell, the domestic den mother, took classes while in her 50s to become a nurse's aide and worked at Sycamore Manor until her vision forced her to retire. Daphne Anderson, the elevator operator, became Director of Communications at the YWCA, as well as President, Secretary, and members of numerous community and church organizations. Ronald Anderson, the waiter who worked at the post office, became postal supervisor and acting postmaster. He also rose to high ranks in his fraternal organization and coached for BD. And I did go to college, earning a BS, MS, and MED in education. I taught school in Virginia and Maryland before returning to my hometown. Although I had secured a teaching position at Williamsport Area High School, my first job upon returning home was at the Bethune-Douglas Community Center as the program director for their summer camp. I then became president of NBCDI Williamsport and started a homework club and teen club at BD. I became president of Williamsport Pop Warner Football and helped them out of the red. I was and still am a track coach at Williamsport High School, all while teaching and raising my son. So when people ask, why don't I sit down? I remember my family and their commitments to the community and BD. And I think because they didn't, I can't stop. I have one more goal to reach, and that's to educate, like my sorority sister, Mary McLeod Bethune, and open a school for these kids who struggle in today's schools. Then maybe I will sit down.